Hey guys, welcome back to XD Guru. In this new video I'm going to show you how to design a simple screen for a travel app. This is nothing too complicated or too original, it's just a very simple screen, something like you have probably seen on travel apps like Airbnb. This is a little preview I can show you right now. As you can see, there's a part on top where you can pick some dates, and a part at the bottom where it's just a simple list of hotels or other kinds of accommodation. So I guess let's get started. Okay, so the first thing to do here is to create a new file from the main menu on top. And once we have our canvas, we're going to use the artboard tool right here and select iPhone 6 so that we get the standard resolution for an iPhone 6 device, 375 times 667 pixels. So next thing to do is to change the white background of the artboard from white to a light shade of gray, something like this. Oops. After this is done, we're going to select the rectangle tool and we're going to draw a rectangle here, which is going to form the city background I showed you earlier. Something like this. We're going to remove the border and change the fill color to something like this. Okay, so now we need to get our background image, and to do that we're gonna check out this site here, which is called unsplash.com, and it's a collection of free stock images that you can basically use in all your projects for free. We're gonna search New York on top. And the image I chose for this project is this one here, which is a cool black and white picture of New York City. Click on download, and actually I already downloaded this photo on my hard drive. So from Finder, you can go back to XD, and from Finder we just drag and drop the image file on our canvas, and we're gonna find it here. Using these handlebars here, we can resize holding Shift and Alt and move it here like this. So the trick here is to use the mask with shape feature. In order to do that, we need to select this layer here, which is the photo we just copied in the document, and the rectangle which we drew earlier. And to select both, we're gonna hold Shift and click. And now we can use the mask with shape feature. And once you do that, you can notice that basically the shape in the background is masking the photo that we just pasted in the document. And by double clicking with the mouse, you can just enter the edit mode and you can move the image around so that you can obtain the whatever background you want. I think this looks good. So one thing we forgot to do is to save the file before something happens. We're gonna lose everything. So travel app, and we should also rename this. Okay, so now we need to give some color to our background, and in order to do that, we're gonna create a new rectangle, which is gonna be the same size as the one we previously created. As you can see, it snaps automatically, you don't need to make too much effort to do this. We delete the border, and we're gonna change the fill to some sort of blue purple color, something like this. And in order for us to see the background picture, we need to change the opacity using the slider here. So something around 70% should work. Maybe let's give it a bit of a lighter touch, something like this. Okay, so now we need to add the status bar on top of the screen, which is the default status bar for an iPhone. We're gonna get this from File, Open UI Kit, Apple iOS. Here we'll have a list of screens default by Apple, and we're gonna pick one where the status bar is white. We're gonna use the select tool and then select this in its entirety. We're gonna copy with Command C, and then we go back to our screen and Command V to paste. I'm gonna find it at the bottom here. So we click on it and we just move it up to the top of the screen. And it's done without too much effort. So now it's time to add the title and the subtitle of the screen, as you saw before. So we're going to use the text tool, and we're going to write New York City. As you can see, we need to make some changes to color and font. So we use Command A to select all, and we're gonna start by changing the font. This time we're gonna use another Google font, which is called Lato. It's a free font. It's quite cool because it has a lot of different weights that you can use, as you can see here. So in this case we're gonna use a regular one and probably increase the size a little bit. Change the fill to plain white, and that's it, I think. So we're gonna move this up, center it. As you can see, the smart guide, purple one, is telling us that this is centered, and that's good. So now we're going to duplicate this piece of text by using Alt click and drag. You can simply duplicate text by doing that. You can do it in any other way, in other ways, but I'm going to explain this probably later. So we're going to select this and change the text to the city that never sleeps. Way too big right now, so we need to make some changes. First of all, we center it, we select everything, we give it probably something like half the size. And maybe bold. Center it again. Change the fill to a yellow, which I previously saved right here. Just gonna make it look quite cool. So one more thing we could do here to increase the readability of this piece of text is to increase the space between the letters by using this area here. So as you can see, the spacing is increasing and it all looks a bit more readable. I think this is fine. Position this a bit better. So now let's see how this compares to our original file right here. Yeah, not too bad. Color is a bit different, but not a big deal. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. So now the next step is probably to design the check-in and check-out selectors where you can pick a date for your trip. So let's go back to our file. And now we're going to use the rectangle tool again to draw our rectangles here. Something like this. We can make the size a bit more rounded in this selector here. Probably like this would be the right size. Okay, so maybe we can zoom a little bit to make it clearer. So we're going to remove the border, change the fill to all black, and change the opacity to about 40%. and also change the border radius and make it more rounded, something like this. One more thing we forgot to do is to lock this layer, so that we're going to avoid selecting it while we want to select other parts of the screen. To do that, you simply right click and click on lock. So as you can see, it doesn't pick it up with the selection tool. Okay, so now we can start and adding some text here. Check in. We need to change the font again. This is something that it's quite annoying in Adobe XD, that doesn't keep the font that you were already using before. Hopefully this is something that they're going to improve soon. Anyway, we need to change the font size as well. Something like this. So now we're going to duplicate this text here, once again using Alt and click. And we're gonna change the size of it to 12 pixels. The color as well, using the yellow that we already used. And the weight, using a bold one. And of course we need to change the date, something like September 14th. We need to probably move this up a little bit, like this. Okay, so now what is left to do is to create the little arrow, which will be displayed here. And we're gonna use as a rectangle tool again. And we can do this on the side, so it's a bit more clear what we're doing. Create this sort of rectangle here. And we remove the border, and we change the border radius to something more roundy, like this, 8 pixels. And maybe we change the color as well, so we see what we're doing exactly. So now we need to rotate this rectangle, and to do this we're going to use this little handle at the corner, and we need to hold the shift key as well on the keyboard, and we're going to rotate it by about 45 degrees, something like this. Then we're going to duplicate this by pressing Command D, or we can do it from here. Yeah, edit, duplicate. And now we're going to rotate it again until we have a perfect cross, like this. Then we pick this up and we're going to move it. And it's going to snap. And there we go, this is our arrow. And now we're going to select both layers and click on this button, which is Add, where basically the two shapes are going to be added together and merged, and this will be now a one standalone shape, which we can resize and change its properties. So we're going to change the fill to white, and we're going to rotate it to the bottom like this, always holding shift. We move it in our artboard, and we're going to change the size to a pretty small little arrow like this, and we move it inside here, and that's done. At this point we should probably group these layers so that we have all them grouped together and we can move them around. So we're going to select them all and click on Object Group. Oops. Okay, something happened here. Oh, that's probably because we didn't lock the layer, the black and white picture. So let's just do that now. We unlock this one, we move it a little bit, then we select the black and white picture in the background and we lock it. Then we put this layer back on top, we lock it again, and now when we try to select these 4 elements, you can see, okay, we can grab them, and now probably we can group them correctly. Yep. Okay, so now that we have these elements grouped together, we can just duplicate this drop down edit, duplicate, and by holding the shift key we can just move it to the right side of the screen. You can leave a little space, 15 pixels between the two. Then we select them both and we center it. So now we can just change the text. And it looks good, I think. So let's have a quick look to the original design, just to have a look if we're doing things right. Okay, it's a bit different, the space between the two drop downs. So maybe we just increase it a little bit, like 30 pixels. Select them all again and we center them again. Yeah, maybe put it up a bit. Cool. So now we need to create this bar here, which you probably have seen on some websites like booking.com, telling you how many of the total amount of hotels are busy. So we go back to our main file and we're gonna create an ellipse, still outside of the main artboard, just to have a clear view of what we're doing. Something like this. We remove the border and we just give it a fill. Then we duplicate this circle, as we do all the time. Duplicate, and we change the fill to it. So now by holding Shift and Alt and dragging this little handle here in the corner, we're going to decrease the size of the circle on top, something like this. And then we select both circles and we're gonna use this icon here, which is subtract, and this will basically subtract the layer on top from the one at the bottom, creating a hole basically, which is gonna look like a donut or something like that. And now by using a rectangle we're going to cut it in half basically. As you can see, this is the half of the donut, let's say, highlighted by the little blue guide. So we're drawing a rectangle, remove the border, then select both the rectangle and the donut, and we do subtract again, and here it is. So now we move it back to our screen, we center it, maybe we make it a bit smaller slightly, center it again. And now we need to change its color from a solid red color that we have right now to a gradient. And gradients, it's a new feature that has been added recently to Adobe XD. In the latest release they released in August. And to add a gradient, you can just do that from this little menu in the color picker. You change from solid color to gradient. And right now you have these two stops here, which define the orientation of the gradient and the color of it. So first of all, we're going to change the orientation of the gradient by setting the first stop here and the second one here. And then we're going to change the color by picking our color here in the color picker and using red for one and yellow for the other. And you can already see that it starts making some sense. And of course you can go back and make the changes you want. Maybe the red is a bit too dark. Yeah, that looks better. So now we just need to add some text under this area here, and we're going to duplicate some existing text on the screen, always by using Alt and click and drag. So we'll drag it down, change the text to 87, and we're going to change the size a little bit, make it a bit smaller and bolder. Yep. Now we duplicate this again, and we just create the percentage sign, but we want to make it much smaller, probably half the size, and move it next to it, something like this. We can select both of them and move them in the center. Yeah, this looks pretty good. Then we duplicate the text again, and we change the text to reserved. Obviously we need to make it smaller as well, a bit bigger. Yeah, and let's see how it looks on a normal zoom level. And it looks okay. So what we can do now is just zoom back to 200%, and we might want to group these elements so that they're easier to move around later. We can just select them by holding the shift key and then right click, sorry, and group. So now it's easy to move around. Okay, so now if we go back to the original design, we're going to see that the only thing that is missing from the upper part of the screen is these two icons here, the back icon and the filters icon. So let's get on it. So to create the back icon, we're going to duplicate this little arrow here, and to do that we need to first ungroup this group of layers here. So by holding the Alt key, we're going to duplicate it, and let's just make it a bit bigger so we see what we're doing. So we rotate it a little bit like this, and then we're going to double click to select one of the rectangles that form this this icon, and we're going to duplicate this as well. Now we're going to rotate it and just do this until it snaps, and then we're going to make it a bit longer like this, and here it is. We just need to make it smaller, and then position it on top of the screen. Yeah, that can work. So now we can move on with the filters icon, and to do that we're going to create a new rectangle. Gonna do it in big here at the beginning, something like 100 pixels by 9, 8, something like this. We remove the border. Actually, let's change the fill as well for the moment. We're going to change the radius to make it a bit more roundy. Okay, so now we need to create a circle, about 30 pixels. Once again, we remove the border, change the fill, and we just put it on top of the rectangle underneath, something like this. Select both, we just duplicate it, 20 pixel distance, 20 pixel distance, done automatically, super fast. And then we move down the little handles a little bit. Something like this. Then we can group all of these shapes to make it only one. Change the fill, make it smaller, and move it to our screen. And on the side. Actually, we might want to be consistent with the distance between the border of the screen and the icons. So we're just gonna move this all the way to the edge of the screen, and then using the shift key we're going to move with the keyboard 1, 2. That means that it's 20 pixels away from the left border, and we're gonna do the same with this. Okay, so by the edge of the screen, then 1, 2, and that's 20 pixels as well. So now we're finally done with the upper part of the screen, and we can move to the lower part of the screen. As you can see, the original design, where we make a little list of the apartments or hotels available. So we go back to our file and we start by drawing a rectangle, and we're gonna use these guides that appear at the border of the icons, so that our rectangle will be already in line with them and already centered in the middle of the screen. We should do it a bit taller, like 200 pixels or maybe 230. Okay, so we're going to remove the border, make the corners a bit more roundy, 8 pixels as usual, and then we're going to do something new which we haven't seen before, which is add a shadow. And we can do this by modifying these settings right down here. So the X and Y setting will basically dictate the position of the shadow. So if I want it to appear at the bottom of my box, I will have to put a bigger Y value, so you see this appears at the bottom. If I want it to appear on top, I'm gonna use a negative value, as you can see. And same thing for the X value. If I want it on the right side, I'm gonna use a positive value, a negative value for the left side. So in our case, we're just gonna add a very subtle Y value so that it appears at the bottom, and then the B stands for blur, and again, if you increase it, it's gonna look like this. If you make it 0, it's going to be very flat. So let's just add a 2 pixel, 3 pixel, yeah, 2 looks good. And we move the rectangle up a little bit until we have 20 pixel distance between the upper border and the section above, so that we have 20 pixel here, 20 pixel here, and 20 pixel here. Okay, so now we need to create the section where the picture will be, and to do that we're going to duplicate this rectangle. Duplicate, we're gonna change the fill to a random color, and then we change the size, something like this. And now we need to change the corners, the lower corners, because they're rounded, and we just need to use this little icon here, which, as you can see, it says different radius for each corner. So this works in a like clockwise rotation. So this will be the top left corner, this will be the top right, and then the bottom right and the bottom left. So we need to change the one at the bottom, the ones at the bottom, set it to 0 and to 0. As you can see, it disappeared. Then we need to change the shadow. Actually, we need to delete it, and that's how it's going to look. It looks like the main box is still a bit too small, so we need to make it a bit bigger so that there's more room for the text. Can increase this a little bit as well. Okay, so now it's the time to add an image to this section here. We can do it very easily, and I already saved on my computer some images of New York, and we're just gonna drag one into the red area, and boom, it's all done. The image will become the fill of this section. And now we can just add some text in this white area here. Again, we need to change to Lato. The size, probably it's okay. Let's try to make it a bit lighter. And we need to change the color to a dark gray, something like this. And we position it here. And now we're going to duplicate this text and change it. Going to make it much smaller. Change the weight to regular and change the color to a brighter shade of gray. Yeah. Probably need to move this a little bit. Yeah. Duplicate again this text and we write down the price. We make it bold. Duplicate again. And this has to be much smaller. Like this. And a little less bold. Looks good. So now we need to create the heart icon, which will be positioned here. We do that by first drawing a circle. Remove the border and we pick a color from here, something like that, and we make it a bit brighter. Yeah. And we center it. And now we need to create a heart icon. So to do that, we're just going to create a new file so it's more clear what we're doing. First of all, we're going to create a rectangle about 250 pixels. We're going to give it a light shade of gray. Then we will create a circle as well, 250 pixels. A bit of a different shade of gray. And we just take this circle, position it on top. Exactly when it snaps, you see the guides. That means that it's perfectly centered. We duplicate this circle and we do the same thing. Oops. And we do the same thing. Yep. And then, as you can see, we already have a shape of a heart. And by selecting all three shapes, we're just going to merge them into one. And here we go. So now we take this, we copy it, and we're going to paste it in our design. We remove the border, we make it white, and we shrink it a little bit, and we position it in our little icon, and we center it. Probably the heart is still a bit too big, so we're going to make it smaller. Yeah. Okay, so now what we need to do is to duplicate this box and create like 3. So first of all, we're going to increase the size of our artboard. We double click on it and just drag it down. Sorry, something like this. And then one of the coolest feature of Adobe XD is the repeat grid feature. So first of all, we're going to select all of these layers and we're going to group them. And then once this layer is selected, this group is selected, we're going to click on repeat grid, and you see that green border appears with some handlebars on the sides. And if I just use this handlebar here at the bottom and drag it, basically it will replicate my box for as many times as I want. 3 is enough. And if I click into it, and as you can see here, if I click in the between each box, there's a space, and by dragging this I can just set the amount of space I want between each box, and it all will come into place without having to change each individual box. So we already used 20 pixels, so here it is. And now we can change the artboard and make it a bit smaller, and there we are. So the next step here is to just change the pictures. We're going back to the folder where I had pictures saved. We select them all and very easily just drag them into the design, and automatically all the images will be replaced. Another pretty cool advantage of the repeat grid feature is that you can make a change in one of the elements contained in the repeat grid, and this change will be replicated in all the other elements. So for example, we want to change the color of the price and make it the same blue as this. As you can see, the color is changed all over the place, not just in the first box. And so this is pretty cool, I think, because it minimizes the amount of changes that you need to make. So we undo that, and we can just start making changes to the text, just random stuff. Okay, sorry for took a bit long. And now if we compare this to the original, I think the only thing missing is this instant booking little tag in one of the boxes. So we're going to do it by creating a new rectangle. Let's zoom a little bit here. We remove the border, we change the fill to a dark gray, something like this, and we change the radius to 8 pixels, and we need to position this tag properly, so we align it to the top, and then using our keys with shift we're going to move it 1 on the left and 1 at the bottom, so we have 10 pixels on top and on the right as a margin. So now we can create our text, all in capital. Once again we need to change it to Lato, make it much smaller, yeah, and bold and all white. It's already centered, and we'll move it a little bit, and we leave the space for the flash icon, which we're going to create in a new file. So for this icon we're going to use the pen tool, which is located here, and we can just start drawing it. not sure why this is not connecting. Okay. And now we can just change the fill. And remove the border. And we copy it and paste it back in our design. I'm going to make it smaller and use the same yellow that we are already using in other areas of the app. Still a bit too big. This will probably work. Okay, so I think we're done here. Let's have a look at a normal zoom, how it looks. And let's compare it to the original design. It's not exactly the same, but it's quite close, and even if it's not the same, who cares? I think it still looks okay. So I guess that's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. And guys, as always, please let me know if you have any feedback about my style of recording. I know it's not perfect as I just started. And let me know if I'm too slow, if I'm too fast, if you don't understand anything, and I'll try to improve. Also, please subscribe to the channel so that you can get notified when new videos will be released. And also I will include the source file in the comments of the video, so you can download it and play with it and see what I've done practically. Alright, thank you so much again, and take care.